everyone. Welcome to the Musician's Gear podcast. Today we are joined by Steven Ramos, and
Yes.
he was very kind to do this kind of last minute. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Steven, taking some time out of your night to just shoot the breeze and talk music and potentially gear and whatever else we want to talk about. So welcome.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to be here. Cool opportunity. I've never actually had the chance to be on anyone's podcast before, so
Well, that's
I
changed.
had to jump on the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting, like how podcasts have like taken over in the last like I don't know, maybe 10 years might be a lot. I would say at least in the last like 6 or 7 years, maybe would be a better time
Sure.
frame. But
Yeah, I listen to podcasts. I feel like at least equally with like how much I listen to music, if not more, because uh, I do a lot of when I'm commuting or something like that. I'll listen to podcasts. I do listen to them a lot, to be honest.
okay,
So.
who's your some of your favorite go-to podcasts?
My go-to, my like absolute favorite is Last Podcast on the Left.
Okay,
Uh, I don't know. It's like true crime, but they're comedians,
yeah,
and yeah, it's just, I mean, exploring a lot of, uh, they go into the true crime, like serial killers and whatnot, but and psychology of them, but then also just like ridiculous stuff like aliens and just
oh, of
whatever they
course,
want to cover. To be honest, it's fun.
yeah. No, I love that. I I was watching an episode of Joe Rogan, and in the comment section on YouTube, people were like, "Finally, the old Joe Rogan's back. We're getting sick and tired of all these comedians and his buddies instead of people talking about aliens and space." So I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
totally.
that's true." When I first kind of started to like listen to him, it was all those guests talking about space and just psychedelic stuff, and like you're like,
Totally.
I
Yeah,
don't know, it's just
definitely
interesting
my
stuff.
fair share of time like involved in learning about those categories, through podcasts.
Oh yeah. So I forgot to mention, Stephen, you are a musician and a saxophonist, as I think that's how
That's
you would say
right.
it.
Yeah, I play sax professionally, and uh, yeah, that's pretty much all I do right now, actually. Kind
Oh,
of,
okay.
I go between a lot of different things, as like a contractor for um, whoever needs it. But like first and foremost, I'm a sax player for hire,
Okay.
um, which I have been really lucky and blessed to be able to do that, like pretty much full time. So
Let's
even
go.
though it's not really full time, like it's still playing mostly on the weekends. But I haven't had to have a job this whole summer, which has been pretty cool. Which is
That is
why I'm
really
going to
cool.
start working at
Yeah.
uh, the Five Star as well because I just have so much time where I'm like trying to. I've been spending a lot of time like trying to do production and trying to get my own stuff out there and enjoy actually making music again. Uh, but uh, but yeah, I have a lot of other time too. So getting back into sound and trying to right some of the wrongs of sound men that have been my engineers, and I've been so
Shoot.
frustrated with them. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to be the good sound engineer, you know?
Well, it goes a long way. I don't know if you know kind of my history performing. I performed in an 80s cover band called, well, originally it was Still Badger, and then it was Summer of '89. And
Yeah. Okay.
we performed in it for it was about 6 years. And it started as a college band. It was
Okay.
formed with myself, Blake Charette, Jordan Saucier, Nathan Budge, um, Sarah Hakes, and we went through a couple different drummers, but Talent Cox,
Okay. Yeah.
Eisen
These
Law.
are all very familiar names. I know Jordan pretty well. I used to play with him a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I know some of those other guys from the Diamond Empire
Oh,
uh
probably. Yeah.
roster.
Yeah. I mean, they've all gone on to do some awesome stuff, and but yeah,
Yeah.
that was the band. We dress up like um
You
kind of
go
like,
like you going hair metal?
yeah, it was hair
Is that like
metal.
the vibe?
Yeah, we had
That's
we had the
cool.
hair, the leather pants,
Nice.
um, the whole shebang, and so that was my past. But for a long time, like at the beginning, we didn't have a sound engineer, right? So we would just bring Blake's sound system, and we would have to run sound for ourselves and set everything up. And
Right.
that's kind of what got me really started into doing live sound. Like I had a love for it, and then in college, I had opportunities to like work in the concert hall and like teach other
Yeah.
technicians how to do stuff, and then I did freelancing stuff after that, and it goes a long way. And technicians that really know their stuff and take care of you, like they're like your favorite ones. You know, they usually are characters too. They usually have the biggest personality. He's the ones that are, I don't know why, but like the ones that are good, they just love what they do, and they're just like, I'm gonna get you set up. And um,
Yeah, absolutely.
there's this
It
one,
changes the show so much. It's like everybody loves music, and I, I love playing music for people, and without I, a good sound guy, you shouldn't have to know that they're there.
yeah,
So it's like it's a very thankless kind of like position to be in a lot of times, unfortunately. But it. I mean, as a musician, it's like if the sound guy is not doing their job, I like hate everything about playing music, and I like don't want to do it because
yeah,
it's not fun, you know?
yeah. It makes it harder to do your performance, and if you can't hear yourself or hear important members of the band, yeah, it changed the experience. I totally get. There's times where my monitor was like non-existent. I was just like, well, all right, I'm going to turn up my amp on stage, and he may not like that, but I'm going to do it because I can't hear myself.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
um,
And you said you were playing guitar, right?
primarily, yeah, I was primarily the rhythm guitarist. I would sing some backup harmonies here and there,
Okay.
just on certain songs, and um, knowing how my gear works and how the works with the sound system, goes a long way. And um, yeah, we played in all sorts of venues, lots of bars, all throughout
Yeah.
Utah, a little bit of Idaho, Nevada. So festivals were more favorite ones, as they're just a little more fun. You get paid a lot more for like a short amount of time of playing than a bar. uh,
Certainly.
but
Certainly.
we had some. I mean, we played at a couple casinos as well, which were fun,
Okay. That's pretty
and they
cool.
pay pretty good. And they pay you for. You're like, hey, come out for a weekend. We'll give you rooms. We'll give you some
Yeah, it
per
sets you up at
diem.
yeah, that's cool. I've never had a chance to do any casino gigs ever actually. That sounds like a lot of fun. I feel like the 80s cover band really like would fit in a casino really well.
Yeah.
The majority of the bands I play with are uh like because I went to school, I like a lot of saxophone players. I went, you know, the only thing that was interesting about playing the saxophone was playing jazz. So you start learning jazz, and then it kind of transitions to funk. And in college, that's pretty much like most of what I did was either like pop, funk, or jazz. Some assortment of that.
Yeah.
But not too long after college, I ended up getting invited to a Halloween party for a bunch of reggae musicians, or like
Okay.
these reggae bands that were playing. They had a Halloween show. And they're like, yeah, hey, just bring your sax along. And I got introduced, like my eyes were open to this whole world of like reggae.
Yeah.
And I have pretty much like transitioned, and now that's like almost all I play.
Really.
I'll do it occasionally. I will do like it's if people are paying me to play whatever, I'll jump in and play. But like all my main projects that I'm focusing on are all like reggae.
Okay. No, that's cool.
So
Have you ever? Do they do saxophone with and ska, like with ska music?
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
ska and reggae are. I don't know if you're aware of the history of ska or like how reggae came about, but a lot of people kind of think that ska like came or there was reggae and then it got like formed to ska. But
Okay.
actually, it's the other way around. In Jamaica, they played ska, and that's what Bob Marley like turned into reggae.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, I
the
actually didn't know that.
yeah, the groove that the classic like ska is based on is it's called like the one drop, which is the same in what modern reggae is, but it's just about the subdivision.
Yeah.
So it's like an eighth note subdivision in a ska. So it's going and it kind of has like a quicker two feel,
Yeah.
where modern reggae is kind of, it's like it's just halftime. It's literally all it is. But
Okay, yeah.
uh, but yeah, that's Bob Marley was like one of the first people to ever do that. It just like play the whole set halftime, and people loved it. So
Yeah.
and that's what like reggae uh, blossomed into, But ska actually like came first, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting. See, this is why it's awesome to talk about this type of stuff. You learn something
Yeah.
new every day, right?
Totally, yeah. And I mean, if I hadn't have been introduced to these, like, I wouldn't have learned any of that in college or anything, Like, it's just from being out there, and I just happened to start getting a lot of work playing with reggae bands, and playing saxophone in a reggae band is just like literally the easiest thing to do ever.
And
Not
heck
not
yeah.
that other people would say that necessarily, but I think it's super easy, and I just think it's really fun, so that's why I like doing it.
Gotcha. Okay. That's cool. What school did you go to?
UVU.
UVU.
Utah Valley University.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I used to live really close to UVU. I lived like off of University Parkway and
Okay. Were
um
you a BYU guy or
Snow College. Snow
oh,
College.
okay, Snow College.
Yep.
Okay.
So
I swear
Jordan
that I
went
had
there.
met you at UVU. That's how I thought that I knew you actually, but
Maybe. I
uh
mean, I used to go to their institute building a lot. Um
okay, sure.
so do you know an Alec Tambo?
I pretty sure I do, yeah.
Okay, he's a guitarist. And he has a band called Vibe,
Okay.
VYBBE, and yeah, so he used to be in my church ward.
Gotcha.
He was in that, so that's how I knew him, and he was in the UVU music program. So, or he
Gotcha.
is, I guess I should say. And so maybe I don't know, somehow with that I've met you, but yeah, I feel like I ran into you at some point because for a minute I thought you were a Snow College guy. But I'm like, no, it's Snow College is pretty small, so like I was pretty sure I
Yeah.
knew everyone that I went to school with. Um, but yeah, it's possible that we somehow interacted, whether it was
Yeah.
through another band or having one of my friends that
Yeah.
you know.
Certainly in running in the same communities, doing the same kind of work, so
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's a small community, the music
yeah,
in
small lake
Utah.
city, as they say.
Small Lake City. That's true. That's funny. There was this rapper that came up with a song. It was so stupid, but it was called Salt Lake Liddy. He was like Salt Lake Liddy, Salt Lake Liddy, where the girls are down, like Salt. Yeah, it's just. I just
That's
remember that. I don't know where I came across that song or how it came to be, but I just remember it being funny. But
my
um,
favorite Salt Lake like is people's doing like abbreviating Salt Lake, Utah.
oh yeah,
And you see that like on shirts and stuff. I feel like we used to when I was in like junior high and stuff be like, "Oh yeah, she's from Salt Lake, Utah." We would like joke about uh, you know, being mean to people like that. But now people have like people own it. It's on shirts now. You can get them at the Everything Utah store in Salt Lake. So
it's so funny because it's it's like, yeah, I'm gonna call myself a slut. Salt
yeah,
Lake UT.
exactly.
It's like,
Yeah,
it is funny though. It is.
taking the power back.
Yes, yes. Um, but yeah, I was just in Washington recently, right, this last week for a conference, and you can kind of tell the people that like were from Utah that were in.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
totally.
to a certain extent, but it was just funny because where we met was up in the mountains, and I'm pretty used to that being in Utah. And a lot of these
Yeah.
guys were coming from like LA or different places, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, there's mountain and trees," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is not much different than it is at home, and it wasn't rainy at all either. Which in Washington, and there's like right on the border of Washington, and Oregon, where it's usually pretty rainy.
Sure.
I was like, it just doesn't feel that much different. Like, like it's a little different. Like the trees are a little different, but
I do. One thing I think about over there is I get like surprised about uh, how many plants that you see around that have like the just because the ocean is right there.
yeah,
It's like all the plants that I personally associate with like uh I don't know, like warmer places, like they
yeah,
still exist in even up there, like further into Washington and stuff too. It's
yeah.
just like they take different forms, and yeah, it is pretty cool. I got to go to been up to Washington a couple times. Got some family up there as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good area. I mean, I like it. It'd been quite a few years since I've been there, but it was fun. I wish I would have had more time to like go to like the local venues and stuff, but we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere where we were, and just at like a
Doing a conference, you said.
yeah. So it was like 7 to 7. You'd start the day and you get breakfast at 7, and it would go until you'd start dinner at 7 p.m. and then that would go
Yeah.
until about 9 or 10, and then go to bed and start
You,
it over
yeah.
again. And
You got to get ready for the next day. You don't want to go hit the bars or whatever after
oh,
that.
people did though. People did. I just wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
I'm not a drinker, so at least yeah, not
Fair
anymore.
enough.
So I try to stay away from that stuff. It,
Yeah, fair enough. It's honestly uh what's funny, so like I grew up Mormon and LDS,
yeah.
I went on a mission. I did all of everything. I haven't been to church for a long time, and I have I kind of got involved. I mean, I'm gonna say like in a nice way. Like I play reggae music, so probably aware of like what kind of things we
Hmm.
might smoke in a reggae band.
I don't
Like,
know what you're talking about. I have no idea
uh,
what you're talking about.
but funny thing is that I felt like earlier, like in my 20s, it seemed a lot cooler. Everything seemed a lot cooler, and almost all the people now that I hang out with are like, you know, nobody's drinking, nobody's smoking, nobody's doing anything. Not, and these people aren't even. It's not like for a religious reason. It's because it's just so toxic to your body, you know. Uh, and I think that it's getting to be a lot more popular with, especially with just having more access to information and like see how generally more people react. Obviously, there's like years and years of history of alcohol being legal, so we know how people kind of act when they have alcohol and like how bad it is for you,
Yeah.
But for a long time, cannabis is kind of on the other side of like this veil of people not really knowing like what's good about it. Everybody says that there's good with it, but everybody says there's bad too, and everybody has different experiences. It's all totally different, but now at least because it's in the open, people can kind of see a little bit better, like, and know the consequences of their actions potentially a little better before they make a decision. Uh, but I will say I do think it's pretty tough to be in the music industry without any, just because like the substances are always especially alcohol, it's just ubiquitous with the rest of the world, and like business culture, whatever kind of culture it is, it's very common, obviously. So
It
sticking away
is.
from
Yeah.
so.
It's
Okay.
yeah. I mean, my band when we played in bars all the time, there was always people were always offering to buy you drinks and stuff, and half the band drank, half of us didn't. And so all the ones that drank were like, "Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to get free drinks and stuff."
Yeah.
But for me, like, I don't know. I just never been like big into it. We do know a lot about the what alcohol can do to your body, right? And over time, and it's like poison. It's literal
Yeah.
poison that we're taking in our bodies. And so, to me, I never like to basically be out. I don't know. Some people like to kind of get out of their mind, like their day to day mind, but like my intelligence and like self control are like one of the most important things for me. And so
Sure.
for me, it's like it was like, well, even if I'm playing, like I don't, if I'm playing, who knows where my mind will go? Like I might have known the bridge 2 shots ago, but will I know it? You know?
Yeah,
So
I will
yeah,
say, yeah, like for myself, I've kind of come to this point because I feel like a lot of people that have like a the path where you start super strong and then I kind of like uh what's the word? I kind of swung hard the other direction, you know, to say and I when I was well, let me just say it like this. Nowadays, I don't like enjoy getting faded before playing. And even though it is something I actually enjoy doing a lot, but I enjoy doing that like for myself and for certain reasons. Because if you are, again, we're talking about being in the entertainment industry.
yeah,
If you have to put on a show and you have to like, especially, I mean, and like the less solid your band is, the more like pressure to act the right way and like flow with people on stage, and have to like roll with some punches and like for how the band is gonna play. It's like a lot harder and way more anxiety inducing if you are not like completely in control of your senses,
I
you
agree.
know?
Yeah,
So like, uh, eh, you know, I I'm not gonna say that I recommend you try it or anything. I'm just saying, like, for me,
yeah,
I enjoy, there's some things about it that like there's reason that people use it is because it makes you more creative. It puts you in a much more creative headspace. It doesn't make you better at playing. It it
that's
doesn't make you like, man, I have this so anybody, if you talk to anybody who tries like edibles for the first time, I feel like 90% of the time the story is going to go something like this. We took the first edible, or we took the first half, or whatever it is, and then 2 hours later, we just thought it was a dud, so we took another one, and then at 3 hours in, you're just like underwater and like totally unable to control your senses, basically.
yeah.
And that was essentially what happened to me my very first time, and I was in college at UVU. Uh, and I took the first one and took the second one, and then I was like, wow, okay, I guess these just didn't work. So I went over to UVU. I started working on a project for my like Pro Tools class,
Yeah.
and the assignment was like straightening out drum tracks. So it was like, okay, we have 5 different tracks of, the drum mics that got recorded on a session, but the drummer didn't play in time,
Mm,
So we're gonna
nice.
like it was like teaching you how to move everything together so you're not getting phase issues and stuff like that. And I remember just at a certain point, like listening to the click and hearing the drums and just being and losing my ability to determine whether it was like right or not
Mm.
because I was like, that just sounds good.
You're like,
Like
I like
I'm
what he
like
did
that
there.
snare sounds real good, bro. I can't tell what if it's on beat or not. Like I start interpreting everything as like, oh, that's just like that's just the feel they were going for. And it's like, it that state of mind can be valuable, like to just be by yourself and to enjoy music, like in a personal setting. But in a professional setting where you're getting paid to entertain people, it's usually not the best move. you know.
Probably not. I mean, that's just my personal opinion as well. Like, I mean, and like going back, you like say it can make you more creative. Like, in the psychedelic period for the Beatles, right? Like they were on a
Yeah.
lot of different things, but there was very interesting music that was made, right? And like, you know, I'm not gonna argue that it doesn't. It's just everyone's got to know, like, where it fits in or if it fits in their life and their creative
Yeah, because
process.
exactly at the same time, like the Beatles are that's they're such a great example because I don't think that they're. I mean, it's going to be a long time before we ever have a band that is like truly bigger than the Beatles. You know, as big as they were, just like so perfect in so many ways for reaching the amount of fame that they had that they didn't actually want at all. They wanted to play like smaller. They want to have fun, just like any other musician. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I I don't do as many bars anymore, just because I grinded them out like a ton when I first graduated and a lot, but there's still something that's just so satisfying, so much fun about like being around people that are just genuinely like down with the music and you're just able to give it to them. Like, whether that's at a bar, whether that's at a wedding, whatever the situation is, I'm like, but with the Beatles, like they didn't even have the opportunity to do that because at a certain point the girls are screaming so loud they can't even hear themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, I just recently watched a documentary about the Beatles, so like they're fresh in my mind right now. But um, the you can see how that, like, for someone who's a professional to use it in the right context, they were able to get a lot of. I mean, and arguably too, I will say, not all their music is like what I love. you know,
Yeah, and that's
like
fair. It's
they
not.
wrote
Yeah.
a lot of music, and a decent amount of it is quite good. And I don't know, the rest of it is whatever. Uh, but like those are those individual people with psychedelics. Like, if you had a history of psychosis in your family at all, like there's a chance that you just actually won't come back, and that
Yeah.
you'll just be in a psychotic state after that, which is like, that's pretty worrisome, but it's, right context, right, like energy and the people and everything, I think it can be a thing that can boost, like, creative people in a lot of ways, but it's there's a lot of dangers with it as well. So it really, you have to be careful. And to think that, like, oh, I'm just gonna do this because I'm gonna be like the Beatles. Like, are you like the Beatles? Like,
Yeah.
no. Like,
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
is.
No.
Nobody probably will for the next 100 years at least. Like, I
Or
mean, I
ever. I
don't know.
mean, like I
Ever,
think it's
yeah.
just gonna
There's,
be different. Like,
yeah,
um, yeah. I mean, our modern music and musicians nowadays, it's different because it's artist based, right? Who's going to be the next biggest artist? I mean, there's big bands out there, but I feel like we focus so much just on solo artists right now. Um, I mean, a good example of someone that has kind of like done a lot of like different stuff recently is like Post Malone, right? He was doing that, the hip
yeah. Right
hop,
as you
and
as you started saying that, I was like, I bet you're about to say Post Malone. Yeah,
yeah,
he
and
totally has. He totally transitioned to country, which is like,
yeah, mind blowing.
it's
Like,
awesome.
and I kind of like it. like
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I mean, I grew up on country when I was younger. Like my mom would listen to it a lot. My dad would listen to it. I like
Yeah.
country. I'm not a big country listener, but I grew up on it, so I appreciate it. Like at
Yeah.
least the older stuff. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of modern country, but
Sure.
I was listening to his new album, and I was like, man, these are actually pretty good. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely more of a rock and roll type of like country song. It's the modern country, right? But
Sure. Yeah.
it's still like, all right, like I it just works somehow. It's like,
Yeah.
who would have
Totally.
thought? Like,
I know. I remember the first. I can't remember what song or what the name is, but it's Post Malone with Ozzy Osbourne. They did two tracks together. The two collabed on two tracks,
yeah,
and they're like some of my favorite Ozzy tracks, other than like the, like, classic stuff, like stuff that he's done recently. Like, the tracks with Post Malone were so good. It's
I think it
crazy.
was take what you want from me. That was one
Yeah,
of them.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was one of them. Oh,
Yeah,
there's it's a raid.
yeah,
It's a
it's
raid.
alright.
And I think the other one is take what you want. Take what
Yeah,
Yeah, Take What You Want featuring Ozzy Osbourne. So that was Post Malone's song that Ozzy was
Oh,
on,
right.
and then It's a Raid, which is something Ozzy wrote that
Ozzy
Post
wrote,
Malone
yeah.
was featured on, which it makes a lot more sense. Like, darn it,
Yeah.
it's a lot more
It
rocking.
definitely that one feels a lot more like an Ozzy song too, where he just I think that he just leaves the end of of his verse, he's just like fuck,
Yeah, yeah,
and it
it's
just
like
like it breathes for like 2 seconds and then they just go back into the
dun
groove.
dun dun. Yeah, yeah. I remember that came out. I was like, this is pretty cool. Like
Yeah, I was super down with that. It's something about I've been thinking about a lot recently about because I have never been someone who's listened to country, to be perfectly honest with you, but I've recently have been getting into a couple country artists that have just blown me away with their songwriting and and how much I'm starting to see some of these genres as they're just like so similar. They just have different instruments and the different ways that they like accentuate melodies and whatnot. Like, because country has such a um, like all the various instruments playing together. I would say like bluegrass, the
yeah,
mandolin, the banjo,
violins.
guitar. But yeah, I mean, and the fiddle in that case, right? And like
Yeah,
the upright bass and whatever it is, like there's certain things in country like when it turns around, you're gonna have the bass. You're in a two feel a lot of the time, and there's I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of tropes of like how country is played and how it's like done,
yeah,
and which is super because I've been like I said so into reggae for so long, or like for the last couple of years, because in reggae it has a lot of like they're not the same, obviously, but it's just tropes of the genre that happen like consistently throughout a lot of things. So if you are the guitar player, you are the bass player, like you're gonna kind of have a roadmap if you do your homework about the language of the genre that you're learning. Uh,
yeah.
then you can you can play them pretty effectively.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like so I'm a string player, right? So
Right.
once you understand like how a stringed instrument works and you like get competent enough on one, you could go to another one, right? And then start to pick up on it a lot easier, right? And I would say probably the same thing with woodwind instruments, right? If you know how
Yeah.
to play one, you understand it enough. Obviously, every instrument's different, so there's going to be learning curves, and um,
Yeah.
but it's almost like that. That's kind of how I compare it in my head. It's like, well, you have the formula of like how it's supposed to work, but now you
Right.
just got to get the muscle memory and the skill and work with the differences, right? Like for instance, like a bass guitar player, you're gonna play different than you play a guitar. Like
Yeah.
upright bass is a lot different than a electric bass, and even though they're very similar in some ways, they're also different enough that it's like
Yeah, and
not.
the ways that they're played are totally different too. Like,
Yeah,
and you can play them the same way, but
yeah.
like whatever you have to play whatever is appropriate for the genre, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, no, that's cool, and I think he Post Malone is a good example of how you can like have a big audience that likes one style of music and like introduce them to like another style that they probably would have never listened to, but because they love the artist, now they love them. They or
Yeah.
maybe are starting to love that style of music, and I think that happens to musicians and artists all the time because whether or not they love the style of music, they can get introduced to it because their bands has to play it for a gig, right? And you're like, wait
Yeah.
a second, I actually kind of like this. Like, this
Yeah.
normally I wouldn't listen to this, but like all of a sudden it's interesting. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been listening to a guy, so I started following this reggae band called Ayaterra a couple years ago. And the front man uh recent I want to say maybe like a year ago now. It feels like it's super recent, but it might have been a whole year ago now. They like broke up the band. They were one of my favorite reggae bands, to be honest. I was like so sad about it.
Shoot.
Um, but he is he's a metalhead, and he's fronting like a reggae band. And he's like, I like singing about love and peace and like all this stuff, and it's all like that's what I like about reggae is that it's like it's easy, it's slow, it's
Kind of happy
uh
music, you know, even if it is
yeah,
like
it's
talking
very
about bad.
positive,
Yeah.
like uh yeah, just messaging, positive messaging.
Positive
Uh
energy, right?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But he himself is like I mean, he's a true metalhead, you
Mm.
know. So he has recently started this project that his name is Nathan Aurora, so his band is called Aurora Wave now,
Okay.
and it's like reggae metal. It's metal reggae. I don't know. They do it. They played at Granary. They've been touring a bunch, and like, I don't know, he's a guy from Vegas, and uh, I never personally, like exactly what you said, I don't really, being a saxophonist, like, it's not that I don't appreciate metal and all these things. Like, I grew up listening to hair metal, actually.
Yeah.
My dad is a huge, like, metal from the 80s and 90s, like, kind of guy.
Yeah.
So uh, I love melodic metal because I am a saxophone player and I love melody, and you can only really play melody on the saxophone, you know. Uh, so like I identify with that, but like with what is more like contemporary metal now, with like the breakdowns and I don't know, overall like brutality of the music, I guess I would say.
Yeah. I
It
like
like
that.
it just doesn't seem like something that would go with reggae, and I personally don't listen to it very often, but you know, he's doing his thing and it's like amazing.
Wow.
And I think that there's a lot of people that just like myself, I'm like I almost kind of wish that he was just still playing in Ayaterra because
Yeah.
I like reggae more, but I see this thing that he's doing. You know, the way that he kicked off the getting into that project was like releasing a big cover album of pop punk songs played like in this like heavier reggae style
Hmm.
with a lot of like you know, famous reggae cameos like to feature on the songs and stuff.
Yeah.
And and yeah, it's like uh that's something about being a musician that I think I've personally been trying to like cue into lately. So I don't know if you've been seeing what I've been doing, posting online and stuff like that, but
Yeah. I've been seeing your
uh,
social media. I saw you doing something with the keys just recently.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, okay, okay. Versus, you know, the going back and forth between different instruments. I mean, and I know you were a musician, but I've seen most of the time you got a saxophone. And I was
yeah.
gonna ask you, do you play more alto or bari?
I actually don't play Barry hardly at all because I don't
Okay.
own one.
Well, there you go. That makes a
I
difference.
play alto and tenor. Like tenor is typically going to be more appropriate for a pop context, like for generally getting hired to do gigs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I personally enjoy playing the alto more because the alto has like a. I also started out on the alto. I didn't get a tenor till like way later in my life, so I've just played the alto for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But in like a traditional horn section, you're gonna have a trumpet, trombone, tenor sax.
Yeah.
Uh, Reason being is that you know, the tenor and the trombone can kind of like be more variable in their range, but then the trumpet is obviously the lead voice. But the alto is in the same range as the trumpet, so it really competes for you know, for the range of the trumpet. So that's why I like playing. If I'm like by myself, I typically will prefer to play alto. But if I'm playing with a trumpet player or really anyone else, usually, unless it's just a trombone player, I can get away with playing alto. But usually, if like play tenor otherwise. So
Okay. Okay. Do you
yeah.
uh do you have like a jazz duo trio or something that you play with very often?
I not super often. Uh like jazz for me is purely like work. It's not music, even though I do like. I feel like the better musician I become and like the more years I've been playing and stuff, the more that I have a deep love for jazz and learning it and stuff, but it's just not music that is like that really speaks to me.
Hey, that's
Like
fair. Yeah.
I I I enjoy playing it. I enjoy, but I don't. Bebop is something that I am not really. Yeah, I can. Most people. What am I trying to say? Like I can fool people into thinking that I play bebop.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
But it's like it's very technical. Uh, uh, so much so to the point for me that it's just I don't enjoy it. Like I prefer playing if I'm going to play jazz. Something that I do pretty often actually is I sit in with the Flamingo Jazz. I don't know if you've heard of them. They have a jazz night every Wednesday at Lake Effect,
Oh, yes, yes,
downtown
I have
Salt
heard of
Lake.
that. Yeah.
And they kind of compete with the Hopkins Jam that Dave Halliday runs, and like I know he has various people like take charge of it, whatever. He's not always there,
Yeah.
uh, but the difference between those two is kind of like jazz from New Orleans and trad, as we'd say, um, like is music that I enjoy playing. But getting into we're just it's lots of chord changes and lots of if you don't know the song, you are not going to be able to play it. You know, that's
Yeah.
kind of like what it comes down to when you're playing bebop. Uh, and it's just not. It's more like, in my opinion, it's more for musicians than it is for the general like people to listen to. So that's why I
Yeah.
like playing. Because New Orleans, like trad jazz, is dance music. That's
Yeah.
why I like it.
Yeah.
And they're, you know, uh, I've heard stories of New Orleans musicians, sitting in on or having people from out of town sit in and play songs with them, and they're like, "Whoa, that's not a seven, bro. That's a triad. Like, play the triad." We're like, "Whoa!" Like they don't even want to throw the seven on the turnaround, like to get to the four or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
they keep it simple because that it's not about that. It's not about all the you know
Extended
the
chords and
the voice leading and stuff. And
yeah.
I love it too. Like it's beautiful music, but I just do really think it's way more for musicians than it is for general popular, you know?
I would agree. I would agree. I was in a couple jazz ensembles when I was in school, and it was interesting stuff, but it didn't speak to me either. It was like it was fun, while I was in it, but I was also like, I don't want to do this forever. Like,
Yeah,
I was like, it was a good opportunity for me to learn how to play a guitar in it, and learn
sure.
some soloing
Some Freddie
techniques.
Green.
Yeah, yeah. But once I was done with those ensembles, I think I was in a total of three jazz ensembles, just to
Mhm.
get the credits in and to get that exposure to. I actually didn't even need to be like you just have to be in so many ensembles, but I wanted to try it and just be like,
Yeah.
it'd probably be good for to expose me. And then in my senior recital at the end, I threw in like two or three jazz standards, and just because I wanted to show all the things I'd learned, and I did a
Yeah.
lot of original songs, I did rock and roll songs, I did jazz, I did some acoustic stuff, and so it was a good variety, I think, for me to have
Nice.
done that. But yeah, some people that's all they
Yeah.
do in school, and I'm like,
Oh, absolutely.
oh,
And it's
that's rough.
I
I think.
just like anything else, like just like reggae, just like country, jazz has its own language. And bebop is really like the king of that language. Like any kind of soloing is kind of accepted in jazz, and jazz is also such like an umbrella term. Like if you're
It is, yeah.
improvising, you can almost just call it jazz, like because why not? Because that is also basically what it is. But uh, but when you're talking about like the language of bebop is just in a way it's like very mathematical, and you really have to kind of know your scales and your so much of it is pattern based, and it's not like it's less about just immediately expressing yourself, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like
It's
it has to come through the idiom, which is bebop, which is also it's like yeah, that's kind of how any musical language works too, but it's just yeah, it's harder to relate to. I don't know.
yeah, and I think my favorite kind of version of jazz would be maybe like big band. I don't
Yeah,
know. It just
it's like
it,
dance music. That's why.
exactly. It's like dance music, and it's cool that you can get so many people involved in it, right? Like you
Yeah,
just have such a you can have so many different instruments and stuff, and from a school standpoint, they like to do that also because then you can throw a lot of people in the ensemble.
yeah, exactly.
Not always practical though, because it's like, how am I going to get freaking 25 people and on a stage somewhere, you know,
Yeah, sure.
unless it's like in a concert hall or something. But
Well, especially like I mean, economically,
yeah,
like,
how are you going to pay all
dude,
those
we
people? Yeah.
we have like 7 people, and so I have a Brazilian band that I play with that we do
Okay.
like samba and then Brazilian reggae, Brazilian reggae styles. There's a couple different ones, but it's basically Brazilian reggae, and like we have 7 people in our band, and we still will take gigs, and we'll be like, yeah, okay, let's just have the 4 of us do it because like we'd rather take a bigger cut, you know. Because if you have to pay 20, upwards of 20 people to play on stage, like you have to be selling some serious tickets, or there has to be some money coming in somewhere, because that's you know, you could pay everyone $10,
Yeah.
but like, what's the point of that? Like you're not gonna get by, you're not gonna like live your life doing that. You can do that as
No.
a communities have orchestras, big bands, and stuff like that. I think it's really cool, like if you want to be involved in that kind of way. But in terms of like commercially being viable, like a big reason why the big bands back in the day were viable was just because that's like what they had. Like there's not they just have the instruments. There's not necessarily amplification, like uh and they're just taking the bands and they're touring all around, and you know, in my opinion, kind of like what happened with those guys is that they got so good at playing over like the 12 bar blues, you know, or like whatever form of the song it is. It was like, hey, what if we just like how I'm sure if you've been playing a cover band for a long time, it's like you know that you could play the song exactly the way that it is on the record, but if you did it like that, you just changed that one little thing there, then you could actually transition there, and
Yep.
and like one of my favorite experiences actually, like being in a cover band, is just having that like maneuverability to like play with the songs, just because they're so like everyone knows them so well after a
Yeah.
while that it's like, oh, what if we just started, uh, what if I start emphasizing the or whatever, like, and then all of a sudden the feel is totally different, but uh, it's still the music. So, man, sorry, I totally lost my train of thought what I was saying with that.
No, you're good. No, I get what you're saying though, because like after playing the cover songs in my band for so long, we would do that. We'd play around with songs and change up the the rhythm and the beat to it. During a solo, like someone would be soloing and then you change it and then you'd go to like a disco feel. Like it just
Yeah,
kind of fun because it's like, and everyone knew what was happening and everyone could follow each other, right? No one was like lost. We're like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like let's do this. Like, and then I think one of the coolest things that I've kind of done with that is like medleys, right? Like making,
yeah,
I've seen some really cool medleys of Michael Jackson where they'll be playing a song. They'll do like a verse and a chorus, and then right after chorus, boom, they'll do like a change right into another Michael Jackson song, and it just works. Or like the
yeah.
Jackson 5 or whatever. It could be your favorite band. It could be AC/DC. You could do something like that.
Yeah, dude. There's one party band I played with for a long time. Uh, we would do Billie Jean into Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh, really?
And it would, which is, yeah, it's like, but it's like, hey, guess what? I don't know. They're both like, what if we just play them both in like the same key that it works and we just go right into it? Like, let's just do it. Boom. And then it happens. It's like, all of a sudden, all these people that were dancing to Michael Jackson are headbanging to, uh, Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's like,
That's
uh,
cool.
it's really fun. Yeah, definitely. So some of the most satisfying, like, performances, at least being in a context where you're like being paid to
Yeah.
perform for people, because I think that original bands can do that too, but it's just a different beast to be doing it, because you're not necessarily working with material that 90% of the audience is like already knows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, once you get bigger, you can do things like that. But yeah, it's a unique. You have unique opportunities as a musician and an artist to like, once you know enough, you're like, you could even on the spot. You're playing with seasoned musicians. You could even pull out a song you've never played before, and it might be a little risky, but you know, if you're good with good musicians, and a lot of times you can pull it off, even if it's kind of wrong, and people are like,
Yeah,
"That
well,
was
as
so
long as
cool."
if you can confidently play, like sing a lead, I think that most people like literally would not even tell if the notes were wrong, if the rhythms were this like in time, if you're playing together, I I submit that majority of people would not even notice. Uh, uh, but yeah, it's uh, especially with performing, it's like confidence is just uh, so important in like convincing people. Something I am not like the best technical saxophone player by any means. Like I know there are a lot of people better than me, but something that I feel like I do well is like moving and like generally performing for people, and make making people feel comfortable to like move and dance because I'm dancing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I kind of get this impression while I'm on stage. I'm like, yes, okay, you have to like, I have to convince you that moving your body and like not being self-conscious of everything that all these people here or being seen or anything, like I just have to convince you that what we're doing is fun. And if it looks like I'm having fun, eventually these people are gonna have fun.
Oh yeah.
And as long as like I am actually having fun, and the music does it, you have to sound good in some capacity for it to be fun. But you can a lot of verses with maybe not the right chords on them or whatever kind of fly by pretty easily because uh, if you're just confident about it, then it's all good. Nobody really cares if you played the right chord, you know?
Yeah, I mean, people are willing to overlook, like you say, if you have the confidence, and sometimes, like some of our professors would say in school, like it's not a wrong chord unless, or a wrong note unless you like let people notice, right? So like,
Yeah.
you could hit a wrong note and then just do like a passing note right to the right one.
Hmm.
It's just like, and sometimes they're like, oh, there's a little like people might notice it, they might not notice it at all. But they're like, oh yeah, they did it on purpose. That's an interesting little
Yeah.
thing. But it's not. You don't if you don't allow people to really notice that you played it wrong. Most people won't. Like there was times, our band would kind of completely ruin a whole bridge, right? And like
Yeah.
people were not playing the right chords, and it was a little
Yeah.
rough. And then afterwards, yeah, so we talked about it afterwards, and we're like, oh man, we gotta be better. We got next time go. We need to rehearse the song a little more. And
Sure.
but like the audience had no idea. Like
Right.
they're like that was so cool, and like, but that's a cool thing. Like it's important to like notice when you aren't playing to your best abilities, but also to just have fun with it. I think early
Yeah.
on when you first start performing, there's so much pressure because you're just like, I have to be perfect this or that. But half of
Yeah.
it is just faking it until you make it. Like really, like being up on stage, having that
Mhm.
confidence. And just because you can play all the notes doesn't mean you can perform. right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you were saying, something to your credit is you're great at like performing on stage and getting people, in the crowd more involved. But there's some of the best musicians out there that just can't even do that, right? Like they can play every note perfect and they're virtuosic on their instrument, but then when it comes to performing on stage, they just won't move. They're just like like they're they don't move at all. They're not like bobbing and beating. They're just like there. Like I know quite a few bass players actually, like, and they're supposed to be the rhythm. They're supposed to be there with the
Yeah.
drums, like boom, and then they'll just be like this,
Yeah.
just stiff. And I'm just like, that's not fun to watch. Like, you don't have to be super animated, but like, can't you pretend you're alive?
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Can I just tell you, like, I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago. I played this gig at Lake Effect. It was super last minute. It was like literally the afternoon of like, can you come here? Start setting up at 5, and it's like 3 that they're calling me.
Yeah.
And but it was company. It was like some company party, whatever. Uh, I I can't really remember his name, to be honest. I just know he's another bald individual like myself, and so we always
Nice.
connect over the fact that we're both bald. But
Yeah.
but he's a guitar player, I'm a saxophone player, right?
Yeah.
And I am getting called because the saxophone player is not available to do the gig like with the band, so I'm subbing in.
Yeah.
And so we played 3 sets. Um, After the second set, there's this group of like women that came up and were just chatting with me.
Yeah.
'Cause
Because
I mean,
you're
I'm just
a
yeah,
man's
I'm
man, is what
performing.
you're
I'm
saying.
getting down the whole
Yeah.
time. I'm sweating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and this guy is like nothing, dude. He's just standing totally still. And these people are like, are they're like, is that guy new? I'm like, nah, dude. He's like a founding member of their band, actually. I'm the only guy, and this is not like my band. I actually have played with these guys not even one time before. Like, I just
Yeah.
got this call. They sent me the set list, and I didn't even look at it before we played. I just got it. I looked at it as we were playing. I was like, all right, here we go.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, here we're playing Sir Duke, a whole step down from the original key. I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm and I certainly didn't like do the best necessarily, but I have a good enough understanding of scales and whatnot. Like on the saxophone, I can transpose things okay.
Yeah.
But the people there literally thought that he was not a part of the band, and that
Yeah.
he was like subbing in, and I was the normal guy. Like that's not not to say that, because like we all contributed to the performance, and I couldn't have done my job. He wasn't doing his job.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But at the same time, like the response from the people is like, yeah, if you're not going to interact with people when you're performing for them, then they're not going to want to watch you.
Yeah. And I mean, it was interesting, like just my colleagues that in school that I was with, some professors would really have to work with them on the performing aspect, and then others, they were so good at performing but they were terrible at actually hitting the right
Right.
notes, and
The
so they're
actual techniques and like making sure you're actually hitting the right notes and whatnot.
yeah. And so it's just interesting how like different people would have to work on different things, and I feel like I had to work on both equally.
Sure,
So
fair enough.
I didn't have like a huge background of like studying music before I came to college. Actually, like I had a guitar. I was like a singer songwriter, but I didn't really know like hardly any theory or anything like that. And so I was
Yeah.
like absorbing all the information and didn't have like a ton of past experiences performing very much. And so for me, I was like doing both at the same time, which
Right.
felt natural to me. But I had friends that were like been playing since they were super young, and like
Yeah.
were super good, but they just like they had to work on performing the performance
Sure.
aspect, because they'd
Yeah.
be like either just staring at their hand the whole time as a guitarist, which it takes time. You got to get that muscle memory on the neck of the guitar and stuff, and or as a singer, sometimes they just are singing with their eyes closed the whole time, type of a thing, just like ah, da, da. And
Yeah,
it's like we'll sing to the audience, like and interact with people on stage and like, involve people on stage, and some people are really good at that. Like I go to festivals quite often and like different settings, and I'm either running sound for things or just watching a friend or just going because I want to go and see the event. And
sure.
obviously, like you can tell that singers that like they're like seasoned at performing because they'll be like pointing people out and like finding a little girl dancing the song and like singing with her, for a little bit, and then moving to another person, getting them involved. And then the ones that maybe aren't as used to that, maybe they're more used to like a corporate gig or whatever,
Hmm.
and they're just like looking straight forward like at everyone, but they're not involving anyone. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they're just
Yeah.
listen to me, and but like the really good performers, especially singers, because they have the most freedom to do that because of their singing. They don't have an instrument in their hand. I mean, everyone can do it to a certain extent. Maybe the drummer can't really do it too well, but
Sure.
if
But
you
there's certainly a difference between just sitting at and just being right here, moving a little bit, and like
oh yeah,
there's certain drummers that can also like really perform too, even though they're sitting down. But it is certainly way harder, and I feel like less expected. But yeah, I do find it pretty egregious when musicians are not willing to uh, perform in that way, just because I think that it's uh, something about like I don't know, something that I like about playing music is that it's like we're I may be the voice that is like being heard right now, but I'm contributing to the groove. Like,
yeah,
and we're all in the groove together. And and why I don't think live music or anything is gonna like really go away with more technology or whatever, because it's a human experience. Like it's connecting with people. And I
absolutely,
think genuinely a lot of people are like afraid to do that uh, at like that level when you're on stage and stuff, which I totally understand too. But it's uh, like if that's what you want to do, I think that you should try to engage and like connect with people more because uh, it's really important. But I wanted to ask you because I feel like I've been having this conversation a lot with some of my friends, and people talk to me like like, oh, you're a professional musician, like you're getting paid to play, so like how important is it for you to go to school? And
mm,
how many people, because I personally, I'll give you my answer, like for me going to school, I don't know if I would like take it back or anything. I don't I'm not really sure it made me that much better of a musician necessarily, but uh based on the people that I play with, like the people that are doing the shows and gigging and stuff, like how many of those people are people that went to school? How many of those people are just hobbyists? Like,
yeah,
it seems like to me, in a lot of ways, that it's pretty split down the middle. Like, if you have a passion for doing it and you can figure out how to do it, you don't need to have you don't have to take bass lessons from like whoever at the U or whatever it is, like to learn how to groove on a bass. Like you just have to really want to do it, and you
yeah,
can figure it out. And even though I think a lot of people don't have uh, maybe don't have the language to communicate everything like perfectly, but uh, like it seems to me that more of a qualification for like playing music regularly and like as a career is you have to want to do it, and that's like the main thing.
yeah,
So it
absolutely.
doesn't matter if you're good at it, it doesn't matter if you're bad at it. If you want to do it, I went to school with a lot of people that graduated, and I'm like fairly certain a lot of them don't perform. And
Yeah,
I think it's because probably they didn't want to, you know?
it's
Or like
possible.
maybe the only opportunities were that, I mean, because this is also taking into consideration like the orchestra, the wind symphony, all these players where it's like a lot of times your only way of making money or anything with that is kind of like teaching lessons, or if you're at the highest level and you're playing in the Utah Symphony, you can get paid, but I don't see a lot of uh, you know, just like, hey, we're gonna be a string quartet that does original music. Like, never. Literally, I've never heard of anyone doing that before. You know?
No, I mean, but it sometimes happens. I can give you my answer on that. I do have some mixed feelings on it, but I will say this for me. Um, it was very important for me to go not just for the learning, but for the networking. So some some of the best musicians I know personally, and I interact with a lot of different musicians, and there's some really great ones out there. I don't think you have to go to school, but I think it depends on your personality. Um, and I think that there's a big benefit to studying with your peers in college where you all have that same want and desire to get better as musicians, and you can learn from musicians and professors that have done it for years, and you get opportunities like to learn in that environment that I think for a lot of people will make them go a lot further and keep trying. For instance, for me, I probably wouldn't be doing live sound if I didn't go to college. That's how I got into it, and I got opportunities to keep doing it, and now that's what I do full time. And my degree did help me get my job, even though it's not required.
Yeah.
It was another thing that they looked at. But I will also say there are some production companies that they know, and I've heard them say this, they're like, we just love hiring, like, for instance, no college guys because they're reliable and stuff. And I've had experiences with musicians that are great musicians, but they're flaky. And that was something that like those musicians that come to school weed themselves out so fast because the professors,
Yeah.
they don't put up with that crap. And then, you're just, they get there's a realization of like, oh, I'm in something where I have to take it very seriously. My grades depend on it. My reputation depends on it. Because your reputation would, especially in a small school like Snow College could easily get tarnished if you just were not reliable or you were hard to work with. You were egocentric. If you
Yeah,
just had this,
absolutely.
and some of those guys, they left college because they got in fights with the professors or whatever, and some of them did they did okay for themselves, and some of them just didn't. And I would say the biggest thing for going to school, and I would be an advocate for, is not so much the degree, is the networking and the opportunities you get. Because I feel like, especially in a smaller school like Snow was, you got a lot of opportunities to face and face with the professors and like professional musicians.
Right.
Maybe more so than you would at like BYU. I don't know. I didn't go there, but
Right.
for me, it was a great experience. And so I only have positive things to say about it. I would say, though, if I own my own company at some point, I'm more likely to hire someone that maybe studied music at a college or university to be a part of my company, for the fact that I know they're willing to put in the time. And I don't know.
And
I would expect
there's a
something.
certain amount of you have to show up enough. There's consistency. There's uh, but I think that's all like that's outside of music. It's those are just like they're professional skills.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
if you can show like college shows a level of professionalism. There's no denying it. Uh, but uh, yeah, I mean, I do think it does give you the nudge because I like want to say that it doesn't too, and then I'm like, but wait, I went to school and look where I'm at. Like maybe the
Yeah,
reason that I have these is that I have this opinion is because uh, I did it and I don't have the experience of not doing it, so like I have a bachelor's degree, so I feel like I have some professional like qualities and whatnot, I guess. Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were able to do it. And I think another thing is, um, as if you're doing like original bands and things like that, I don't think it makes much of a difference at all, personally. But
yeah,
if you want to be in the professional world, there are opportunities to get into it. for sure the professional side of the music industry, I think it does go a long way, because I think people are more willing to trust you, and so you almost don't have to prove yourself quite as much, because there is an
Right.
expectation, of like, oh well, is he reliable or not? You're like, well, no, this person, they dedicated all this time to it. I know that
Yeah.
they are dedicated to it, and then I also see them on social media, what they're doing. I know they're competent enough. I'll give them an opportunity. But then maybe someone that they are jumping bands all the time and they didn't go to college, like that's my biggest worry of like getting involved with someone in a music project is, like, for instance, I tried to start a band with a specific drummer and he was like all gun ho about it, and then our first rehearsal he just doesn't show up, and I'm like, he's on my blacklist, right? I have a list of
Yeah.
people that I will never work with again, and even if they change, I'm gonna have to see quite a bit of change, right? And um, you don't want to be that person that gets blacklisted because you're just unprofessional. And I'm not saying people in college don't do that. That obviously has happened. There's two or three people I can think of that were like
Yeah,
that.
and that's
So
the thing because the college is it's like okay, you probably are more professional. Like it doesn't mean that you are
no,
because
no,
again, too, like I know people like that as well where I would be like that doesn't mean that that's who you are, but at the same time like uh yeah, just actually having relationships with people I think is especially if you can make them in a less like pressure situation, like meeting people at school,
yeah,
you know? It's like a lot easier to meet people in that kind of context rather than like show, hey, what's up, sound guy? What are you doing over there? Could I like watch you? You know, like
yeah,
trying to break into the industry like just on your own, especially like because we were talking about this like the pro sound world. uh, I feel like it because a lot of my experience because like band and orchestra, I worked at Summer Hayes for quite a while,
yeah.
selling saxophones and kind of learning about the business that is manufacturing like instruments and selling them, Uh, and if you want to be like in that business, a lot of it is kind of like how sound is also. It's like it's what is facilitating the music, but there's a lot of like professional kind of like uh, customs and things that you need to know to be successful in that industry,
Oh,
and it's
absolutely.
I think especially with sound, it's like and being there for events and entertainment just generally, like if you're late, like you don't like don't ever. You know,
Yeah.
it's uh, like betraying people's trust like that. Uh, whether it's they're like this last weekend, our Brazilian band was playing in Colorado. I think there are certain situations where it's like, okay, they hired us to drive out from Salt Lake to come, and we were going to be 6 hours early, but they closed I-80. They literally just like closed it.
Shoot.
Uh, there was a huge semi like spill all over the road, so it was just genuinely closed. There's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
But we did. I mean, there was something we did about it. We left with way enough time to like take another route. So we went back and then took another route, and we got there like at playtime. So
Yeah.
we set up as fast as humanly possible and played. We didn't take any breaks. Played all the way through. Uh, like the 2.5 hours of like the 3 hours they had booked us. And like in that situation, it was like, yeah, okay, we've made it work. Like I don't know, you can't even ask for like more than that. Like we did have a bunch of time early that we were gonna be, but it's just like it doesn't even matter if you're late. Like that did hurt our relationship with them, no matter
Yeah.
if it was like totally out of our hands, And we did do the best that we could, but
Yeah.
you know, uh, it's
And at the end of the day,
people
that's
take
all you
it
can
very
do.
personally.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, for instance, for my technicians, I schedule them like at least an hour before they need to be there to just start turning things on, right? Like not even performing or like teching the show, just that's what we do because what if the canyon is there's a backup in the canyon a little bit or what if there's no that's just our policy. And for me, I like to have a lot of time to set up sound, especially if it's like not a property I'm used to dealing with or a location or a venue. Because you just like there's very different things that pop up like oh, there's only a couple outlets on this wall. I'm gonna have to run an extension cables for further away.
Yeah.
There's a lighting problem, or the stage is small, or it's hard to get to where the event's happening. You have to go down these long hallways, or whatever the case may be. And so
Yeah.
you kind of have to get used to planning for things to go wrong. And if it doesn't go wrong, you're like, oh, I have an hour. Well, I can just I can work on the EQ of this room really well now.
Sure, yeah,
Like
and
if I
like
want to.
super dial in the room if
Yeah.
you were gonna spend that time actively doing something. But
Or just
but
talk with your client a little bit more, right? Like just BS with them, maybe play their favorite song over the system or whatever. Like it goes a long way. And I think especially in live sound, like you said, there's no room for error. And like occasionally there's little things that like maybe some feedback happens because a plane is flying over you, or not a feedback, some interference, I should say.
right.
And your wireless microphone picked it up, and you could not predict a plane was going to be flying over this open field at that time, So,
Yeah.
and it's like short, you're like, okay, whatever. Most people, it's like fine, but like, I still can't believe. I had a buddy that he was playing in a group, and their sound guy just couldn't make it. And I was having lunch with him, and I was giving him some video and stuff. And then he gets a call, and he's like talking to the guy, and he's like, yeah, the sound engineer can't come anymore. And so he looks at me and he's like, hey, Josh. He's like, you want to stop by? And I'm like, what's
Nice.
up? And because they were going to have some high school kid try to run this system. And it was like a line arrays, subs, like a
Oh,
digital
snap.
mixer.
Yes.
And
Actual serious mixing and serious sound that's happening.
this kid had never used the board before. And I'm going to be honest, I had not used this board before, but I had used enough digital boards. I was able to figure it out to get the job done. And it wasn't like, to me, it still wasn't ideal exactly how everything went.
Oh,
But,
sure. Well, I mean,
but
the guy bailing the day of is obviously like you're already problem solving like off of that. But
oh yeah. And when I got there, none of the power was ran. So I was like, okay, we need a power drop here. And then, okay. And there was people there that were a part of the city, like for events, but they'd never run sound before. And they're like, hey, how can we help? I'm like, okay, run this cable here, run this cable here, do this. Okay, put the subs
yeah,
here, plug this into this. And then I just kind of took care of the rest. And then the kid that was there,
right.
I was teaching him. I was like, okay, so this is why we're doing this, and then we didn't really have a lot of time to sound check, but we did, but it wasn't like not ideal. And so one of the issues is there was a violinist that had a wireless pack, and it just was not going loud enough and stuff. And so
Mm.
um,
So
the
having to
problem
game
is
the crap out of it.
I was trying to gain the crap, but there was feedback, and the problem is her receiver and her little transmitter on the device, they needed to be like the gain needed to be changed on those. But
Yeah.
I didn't really know that until about halfway through, and then I fiddled with it for a second when they were like playing a song without her for a second, and then I was like, oh my, all right, I've gained it a little bit, I changed it. It's not going to completely fix all the issues, but it's going to help a little bit. And so it was one of those things that like, if I knew I was going to be running sound for that, it was just like a last minute thing. I would have been there
Yeah.
like a lot
Totally.
earlier, and it was just like it was me doing a buddy a solid. I didn't get paid for it, even though they should have paid me for it. But like,
Yeah.
I got the event planner's number, and she was like, "Yeah, I'll reach out to you in the future." And
Sure.
I was still just like, "Lady, like, man, you're an event planner. You should know. You can't like, I mean, and something probably came up, and I understand, but like to a certain extent, but you having your main sound engineer for a city event, like it was like a whole city event, and that was the
Yeah, that's
main.
pretty serious.
Yeah, and they had like, thousands of dollars, like thousands and thousands. Like she
Yeah.
spent like $20,000 on the line arrays just recently, and I'm just like, you can't be messing with that type of a setup and that type of money and not have a
Blows
professional
my
there.
mind how it's so common that that's the case. As you've been talking about this story, I there's a bar in Ogden that I used to play at a fair bit and don't really anymore,
Yeah,
because of like a very similar issue where okay, so the venue has invested a bunch of money, obviously, into the sound system, but they never once have invested in someone to actually learn how to use it at all, which
yeah,
is like the to be honest with you, like the last time I played there, I was so embarrassed by how bad the sound was. I like literally couldn't even talk to the sound guy.
yeah,
Homie is just he's a bartender who is like,
yeah,
yeah, dude, I can do the sound. Like, okay, here's the thing though. If you play a set from 10 to 1 and at 12:55 the lead vocals mic is still feeding back, like you messed up, dude.
yeah,
So, like, that was like one of my worst times ever playing, and I literally was like, dude, like, if you guys book a gig there, I'm not playing. Like, find someone else. I don't care
yeah,
because that's it. I personally find it offensive to like because seriously, it's like this is we spent time. Everybody, we're doing this here. Why are we doing it in such a way? And with the sound is obviously people just don't realize how actually important it is, and you don't realize how important it is until it's bad,
yeah. It's true.
because then you can really tell the mic. I mean, dude, this guy, what he was doing, which this is like how I thought about soundboards when I started, plugging stuff into a soundboard when I was like a teenager, whatever.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, you got your vocal, you plug it in. Now you got three little EQs. Now keep on hearing that noise is coming back, so it must be the highs. So I'm just gonna turn the highs all the way down, and then and like having no idea about any gain, and so what you're left with is like it's just feeding back, still like crazy because the low end is just blowing everything out, and the
yeah.
gain structure isn't right, and nobody can tell any definition of anything that's being said through that mic because
Mm-hmm.
there's no high end.
Yeah, it's like
Like,
flat. Yeah,
uh, it like hurt me in my soul to have that experience. Like, and there have been a couple times like that we played there, and it was like not that bad, and so
you're like, oh, I'll take the punch the one time, and
yeah, you can get. I mean, sure, some feedback, whatever. He's trying to like sometimes trying to be overactive sound guy and like really trying to add a bunch of delay, a bunch of reverb to things, like as if he knows our music and knows where it's appropriate to do that, you know,
yeah,
because if you do have someone that is associated with a band and they know where things can be appropriate to add effects and whatnot, that's like that. I mean, that's like highest level music experience
yeah,
if you have that, you know. But uh, but yeah, just for like a guy at a bar trying to do a set, it's like you don't need
yeah,
to be throwing, you don't need to get your delay going for every little end of the phrase and every little, like you don't need to add tons of reverb to the timbale when he hits the timbale or whatever. Like,
yeah.
uh, it's a much more subtle art, you
It's like
know.
so how I usually do it is first of all, you want to make sure everything's loud enough, right? So, you make sure that the front of house sounds good, like all the instruments are coming in, and then you start to do the mixing, right? Like, okay, um, is the guitar too loud now? Is it do I need to kind of like pan it to the left a little bit or a little bit right, or is it, it just depends on the instrument. And once you get those things, once the clarity is sounding good, the mix is sounding good, then you can start, I think, looking at some. And I usually start with vocals first, with any
Yeah.
type of effects, because just a little bit of like reverb and delay on vocals will go a long way, right? And it's not
Yeah,
so
and
just.
it's so minimal. I mean, to make it start sounding professional,
Yeah, it's true.
you know? And it's again, it's a very subtle thing to do. And so when you're adding that, like, yeah, you add a little bit there, see how it is. You're not gonna like just all of a sudden put this in like a cathedral for no reason,
Right,
you
it's like
know?
this room ain't that big, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I just got a new mixer actually, and I've been playing around with it. And it's an X32 compact.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, I like the compacts. Normal X32s are just too big, I think.
Yeah,
In my opinion, and the compact's nice because if you're setting up at different places, it doesn't take a lot of space up. And
sure.
so I had some music going through it, and I was just playing with the effects, like going crazy with it and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I would never use this much, but I was just like, it's kind of fun, like. But
Yeah.
that's when you mess around with that type of stuff, is when you're like just playing around with it at home,
And there's no
or
consequences.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
not people there that are trying to dance and they're just like weirded out by all these random spring reverbs that they just heard like for a second, you know?
like what was that? And I think a thing also that you gotta be careful with too, if you're doing time delayed effects, is you gotta make sure it's on the right tempo. You got to be tapping the right buttons, to the right tempo, and you got to change it. It will change throughout the song because the band may slow down, they may speed up, and it's a lot. A
The
lot of
band is
time,
almost never playing to a click. I mean, if they,
yeah,
there are bands that play to clicks and that is a whole thing too, but a lot of bands don't necessarily play to clicks. So if you're just guessing and like, oh yeah, okay, that was good at the beginning of the song, like there's a very good chance that it's actually not going to line up.
and then when there's that break, you're gonna hear it off, and it's just gonna, it's not gonna be in time, and everyone's gonna be like.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I
going to
can
be
tell there's
chaotic.
effects there, but why is it in that
Yeah,
time? Um, yeah. So like once I get effects going, I'm like following. I'm listening to the drum through the whole song. Just like, all right,
right.
I'll get it synced up, and then maybe a verse goes by, and I'm like, okay, gotta sync it up again, and most of the time the audience won't hear that you're having to do that. They'll just feel natural, right?
Yeah.
But those are the things you have the luxury of doing once you make it the front of house sound good, it's mixed well, and people aren't like, I can't hear this instrument, I can't hear that instrument, turn up the vocals, and I mean, some people just really like certain instruments blasted, and I understand that. Like, as a guitarist, whenever a guitar solo comes up, I'm like, yep, gotcha.
Yeah, bump it,
Yeah,
definitely.
bump it up. Or someone's soloing, anyone's soloing, right? You got to bump them up. um
Hmm.
and some sound guys don't even like pay attention to that. I think they get it set, and they're just like, they sit back and they're like, kind of forget. But I mean, the thing is, I say that because unfortunately I've dealt with enough sound engineers that they either don't care, or they're just lazy. I don't really know. But
Yeah,
there also are some really great ones out there. So I don't want to like, say that,
yeah,
give people this mixed, oh, there's only bad sound engineers. It's like, no, you just don't notice them, like we were talking about.
yeah. Well, and that's why it's so criminally like underrated because you don't know about the sound guy unless it's bad, and that's why it's so much more compelling to talk about the bad ones because that's like what we remember. But the otherwise, it like should mostly just feel like the band is they're the ones performing to you, and it's being facilitated well through the system, you know?
Exactly.
Because at the same time as I can see, I've worked with sound guys too, where I've been like, just like, especially with sax, I'm like, not everything I play is a solo, but sometimes I like improvise lines, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're supposed to be in the background. So if you see me playing, don't try to pull me up because I'm not
Yeah.
soloing right now. Like, look, the lead vocal is still happening. Don't bump me. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
You
Like,
don't want to overpower the vocals. Yeah.
exactly. And it like makes me as a performer, like I am consciously then playing softer because I'm getting it a lot louder, you know?
Yeah.
So it's changing the way that I'm playing, the way, so I almost can see like there, I think that there, again, it's a subtle art, you
Yep.
know? Uh, bumping, bumping a solo when it's happening, it's clearly that it needs to be happening, like yes. But being overactive and also the faders, like they need to move so slowly. People are
Yeah. Not just
so
whoom.
so
Yeah.
willing. I get so annoyed with sound guys that I work with just because the sax, I feel like it's so, and I'm also always using a wireless mic and always trying to like make sure that I'm not, it's a loud acoustic instrument and
Yeah.
it's harder than, miking a guitar amp or something like that. Like
Oh yeah.
it's, but it's not impossible.
No. No.
And the saxophone, it's in itself is like I have a huge dynamic range.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can
So
you can get really loud on stage if you want.
yeah, and if you are it basically if the sound guy's trying to like dictate my own volume to me and like turn me up when I'm trying to play quieter, it like that really bugs me because then I have to play even quieter and I'm like
Yeah.
fighting against it, you know? And I think because with certain instruments like the saxophone, I think it makes a lot more sense to like set it, leave it for quite a while when it seems really obvious that the sax solo is ripping and it's like it's up on top and I'm up in front of everyone and all this stuff. Okay, then give it a little bump.
Yep.
Like before that, like people are just have to learn that the art of sound is subtle
It
and
is.
like big differences and like quick changes with things like is it's that's why like when you if you have house music going on in the background, you turn the volume down until it's off. You
Yep.
don't like just turn it off
Yep.
because if you do, it feels it feels dramatic when you do that. You have a sudden change like that,
Yeah, it
you know?
feels like it wasn't supposed to happen or like what's going on. Like it puts everyone in like alert almost. Like
Yeah, absolutely. And that could just be literally from just going from music happening to no music happening. And
oh
it's
yeah.
and it's just and it's background music anyway. So then like yeah, how much more important then is still like be subtle when the band is actually playing, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, people don't realize how much we're cued. You know, like a good sound engineer will cue people for like what's supposed to be happening, right? For even like, let's say even like a corporate event. You're in there, you have
Mhm.
music on, people are kind of dig into it, but like socializing, and then you start to just slowly bring it down, right? And then
Yeah.
once you slowly bring it down, then it's like gets people slowly prepared for the next thing that's about to happen, right? Whether it's announcement, usually is announcement, a corporate event. They're like, "Hey, everyone, thanks for coming out. Want to welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Take your seats." But if you go straight from like the music bumping really loud, and you kill the music and then turn up the mic super loud. It's like, whoa, okay, I wasn't ready for that. Like
Yeah.
my mind and my body like just wasn't ready. And it's it there's definitely times I've seen people like in a corporate event, they'll have the music will still be kind of be blasting and they're like trying to talk over it. They're like, "Hey, everyone, come on, go get your seats." And it's like, okay, like, can you see he's trying
Yeah,
to
okay,
talk to
we need
people? Like,
to
start to turn down the
yeah,
music.
start
Like,
turning it down, yeah.
um,
And that's I think it also you can what so I worked with this DJ for a little while. He like taught me that little thing. He was like, "Look, if you ever just immediately cut it, you're gonna it just feels so bad." But
yeah,
it doesn't have to be drawn out over 20 seconds either. It can be pretty
mm-mm.
quick as well. Like if it needs to be quick, it can be, but it has again, you have to feel that like the deflation. Like,
Yeah,
okay, there was a transition, even if the transition was just like volume down,
yeah,
you know? And it has to like that uh you know, I've noticed that even just as a like driving in my car, like, driving on the freeway, I love listening to music loud, and it's loud, like road is loud too, so but then you get off the freeway and all of a sudden it feels a lot louder. It's like, yeah, now there's not as much. And then you get down, you park, and if you just turn your car off and the music just stops, it's like jarring.
Yep.
So, turn it all the way and just as fast as even you can go. It feels way better. And people can do that at home, like when they're driving or whatever it is, like just experiment with like seeing how much it makes you feel so much less uneasy. It's like ridiculous. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's what again, it's a subtle job. But the sound is a it's an important thing because of that, because it really is like, and you leave your volume up, you start your car up again, and all of a sudden your radio just like turns on, and it was like blasting before. It's like it's gonna catch you off guard. It feels chaotic to just have
It
music
does.
start
Yeah.
like that, you know?
I try to finish a song when I park, like I'm parked, because I don't know. For me, maybe it's the musician in me. I'm just like, it feels unfinished, and then it's stuck in my head. I can't get it out of my head if I don't finish it either. So like,
Sure.
I'll be like, and it's funny too. Like people do this naturally when they're looking for, like in the neighborhood, they like slowly turn down the music when they're looking for an address. Like
Yeah, looking for stuff because their attention is shifting.
yes, yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah, it's the
this.
transition.
Oh no, for sure. Well, this has been fun. I mean, I didn't really know what we were going to talk about, but we had plenty of things to talk about, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we could still go for a while.
Yeah,
Um,
we probably could, honestly. Yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and just talking about sound.
yeah, no, it's been fun, and yeah, if you ever need a sound system, let me know for your band or something.
Yeah, dude, you know, so I've been recently getting into starting up my own DJing again,
Oh, nice.
and I have been investing in some more gear and stuff, but I certainly don't have everything that I would want like for an actual band. Like I
Yeah,
have like a system that I can plug myself into, but
yeah,
uh, yeah, getting the rest of the inputs and whatnot, I haven't necessarily spent on like having a good mixer or anything like that. So that is good to know.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And I still don't have everything I want either.
Yeah.
I just keep on buying gear recently. I got um some very 3415s. They're just the Harbinger 15-inch speakers.
Oh,
Got two of
oh,
those.
nice.
And with them they have a really good low end, so you don't really need a sub for them. But I
Right.
mean, depending on the venue, right? Like
Yeah.
for like weddings and stuff like that, you won't really need subs because I blasted them, and like the bass is very impressive. And I talked to a sound engineer at Guitar Center, and he was like, I was thinking about getting the 12s. He's like, were you gonna buy a sub with it? And I was like, probably not. He's like, okay, then get the 15s. You're gonna want the 15s. I
Yeah.
was
If
like,
you
not
don't have
not
a sub, the
the low end
12s
struggles.
can kind of suffer with that for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually I do want to get some nice subs, but I was so surprised how well the bass works. Like I was a little hesitant when he's like, "Oh, you won't need them," and I was like, and for some things that you won't. And then I have like a digital snake to the X32 as well that goes up on stage for the band, makes that really nice.
Nice.
Got some wireless mics, and so yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff I want, and
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
if I end up being just an old man, never married, I'm just gonna have a house full of production gear and stuff, and just have parties, have people come over and
Yeah,
party.
there you go, dude. I mean, it's not a bad way to do it, to be honest. I mean, I've got a couple friends that, one friend in particular who, started his business as like I wanted to just be a studio kind of thing, and then started working with all these party bands, and I mean, he's doing incredible business, to be honest, and
That's
but
awesome.
but it's big investment.
Oh
Like to
yeah,
have if you're running in-ears, if you're running uh you know depending on like it was cool to talk to him because the last time I talked to him, like me and you are kind of in a similar spot. I feel like where I'm like I'm still kind of acquiring my first level of gear that I would want to use. Like I've got some Mackie bumps that that have some pretty good low on it end on them, but I just got a big sub too because I have been like, if it's outside or something, like the bass just suffers a lot, and you need to have like a dedicated thing sometimes,
Oh yeah.
depending on especially genre and what people want. But like if you want to have the full party and you want to feel the bass and stuff like that, like having the sub is cool. But I was talking with him. And he was like, yeah, no, I had these speakers and I had these ones, and he finally settled on like this Yamaha set that was like the size that he wanted and everything. And I mean, I was like, don't even tell me how much money you spent on those, dude. Like
Yeah,
that's because I know even just for one channel of the in-ears, and they're running like 8 to 10 in-ears. Each channel's worth at least like $800 just for the receiver,
yeah,
another
yeah.
400 for the transmitter, whatever it is. Like, I mean, it's pretty
It's spendy,
serious
and you can.
investment, but
Yeah,
and you're doing long hours and stuff too. Like, but you also will get compensated for it, and he's been able to build a business to a point where he's got basically all the best gear, and
that's awesome.
their band sounds incredible because just like how musicians, like if you want to invest in yourself, you want to be a really good guitar player. You're not just gonna play like a Squire like your whole life. You're
No,
gonna
yeah,
you're gonna invest and like spend some money
yeah,
because I will say that at least with like the string instruments, the the threshold for getting into them isn't necessarily as bad as like woodwinds, for example. And
yeah.
I
That's
just
true.
dropped like 3.5 grand on my tenor sax, and I like had to do that because I didn't have a tenor or like another
Yeah,
tenor that I could use, and that's kind of like barely good enough for me to like want it.
yeah.
So at least like for 2 grand you can get a pretty dang good guitar.
Oh yeah,
Uh, but with the sound too, it's like, yeah, even when you spend more money on a better system, it sounds better. Like, and there always will be a point of diminishing returns. Like spending that much more money isn't going to get you that much more, projection or bass or whatever it is. But like, I think people uh, like the real industry about it in being a business person is if you want to sound good, you have to have stuff that's good, and you
yeah,
got to invest in yourself. Just cool.
yeah. It's true. I mean, I'm still gonna keep acquiring stuff, but I'm getting things that I know. Like for instance, if I don't end up using the K not K the Harbinger very 3415s, the 15-inch speakers. I can use those as stage monitors very easily. I can pull those off, and then I have two more stage monitors if I replace them with nicer, you know, front of house speakers, and so there's flexibility there, and so everything. And I'm putting a little bit more money down. Like I could have gotten a cheaper mixer than I did, but
Sure.
Behringer had like there's a really good deal from Guitar Center where I got the mixer for $800 off. Like that's
Nice.
enough money for me that I'm like, okay, I've been wanting an X32 for a little while. $800 is like enough for me to like
Yeah,
justify it. And
for
then the
sure.
Snake was like four or $500 off. So I was like, okay, so
Nice.
it's like, and so that's why I'm willing to do these things. Sometimes you just gotta wait for the right deals, and then I have opportunities. Like I have a couple gigs coming up that I need some of these things for, and I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm getting paid this much from the gig. This is costing me this much. This is basically paying for this one item I just bought, for instance. I'm just an example.
Right.
Um, and then the next gig I have, I'm making money from it. And I've already paid off this piece of equipment. And so, from a business standpoint, you kind of think that way at the beginning.
Hmm.
Like, okay, what can I get enough gigs doing like that can get me by for a little while? And how much does that cost?
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to cost me this much. I'm going to have to put let's say $2,000 down on some equipment and put it on my
Hmm.
credit card, whatever. or out of your savings, and then I need to do 3 or 4 gigs, and then I'll have it paid off. It's like, okay, well,
Right.
that's not terrible. The return starts to happen. Then once you're making money from that, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to put this X amount aside just for upgrading gear or wear and
Yeah.
tear or whatever. And then it becomes this
And
thing that snowballs,
absolutely. And at a certain point, especially if you're doing it at that high a level, like where you have, okay, now I've gone through a couple different sets of these. I've got, you've had a couple different mics, and so when you go to just like, how if you show up to a gig where you only have, I don't know, what's the saying? Hear people say that, like, if you only have one guitar, you don't have a guitar, you know?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
having
You don't
backups of stuff is like
a
it's kind of
lifesaver.
a must. Like
Yeah.
at a certain level of being a professional, it's like if they're paying you, upwards of like 2 or 3 grand to be doing this event, like you better have a dang microphone that works, you know?
Yeah.
And at that point, like, you know, there's also pressure. Like if you have to have brought everything that you
Yeah.
needed for it, and it has to work. And, sometimes if you have to change out a microphone or whatever, like you got to be ready for that in a professional, you know, doing sound at bars and certain kinds of weddings and stuff like don't have to be that high pressure, but at a certain point where, the band that my little brother plays in, like I know that they regularly are getting booked for anywhere between like 15, 25 grand, like just for the band. And
Yeah.
so then, you know, they're doing like it's it's big money that's behind it, so they don't want to, like you have to be a professional at that point and like have backups of things.
Oh yeah. Well, I always try to plan on having more than you need. Like, for instance, I cannot tell you how many clients like you'll get there. Like I've been hired by production companies just to do the sound part, not to bring any gear. Maybe I'm bringing some drum mics or
Right.
something, right? Like
Sure.
I
Just
can,
like run their stuff basically.
yeah. And I for a couple of different production companies, like the clients, like, oh, or the band. A lot of times it's a band. They're like, oh, do you not have another like stage monitor? You only have like three, and we're like, oh no, we only have three. And it's like, well, probably good to have an extra one, like, or like having to bring DI boxes because the production company doesn't even have enough DI boxes. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
that it's really easy though, and sometimes the band isn't the best at communicating those things. It's like
Yeah, and what
the
their
band's
needs
like
are.
the pianist gets there and they're like, oh, I either need two monos or a stereo one, and it's like, oh, well, you said you needed one, you know, and we got
Yeah.
you on one mono, so we can run you mono, or but it's good to have some backup because if someone says that, you're like, oh, okay, well, we have two monos we can run you, or we have a
Yeah.
stereo that we can use. And I mean, there's a big difference in money between a stereo and a mono. Like you can get a mono for like 20 to 30 bucks, but
Yeah.
to get a stereo, you're looking between like $130 to $200 just for a stereo DI box. It's
Yeah.
quite different. So most people just buy monos, and which is fine. I mean, I just have a bunch of monos, but I have
Yeah,
people
same.
that's the first thing they ask for. It's like, oh, do you have extra DI boxes? Like I noticed that, or like an extra microphone. Like if a client says, oh, we're gonna need two, probably just two microphones. Bring 3 or 4, because then what if there's an issue with one, like you're saying, or um, what if they wanted to add, hey, actually, we do want some for like announcements for like the event, and we don't, it's sometimes it's kind of weird with people having to get up on stage. That's like the event planner in charge of the thing. Sometimes they just want
Yeah.
to be like, oh, in 20 minutes we're doing this, and sometimes they want you to do it. And if you have extra microphones there's like less hustle. Like you can kind of just be like, oh, I have one here for me, or I like to have one to talk to the band, right? Like,
Yeah, your talk back from the
yeah, talk back exactly. And it's like, all right, guys, too loud. All right, not loud enough. Whatever.
yeah.
And then when you get something that I want to get soon is like an iPad. I don't actually have one, just so I can plug in my X32 and just be walking around and be
Oh
up on
yeah, I
stage
was
with
gonna
them.
ask because I think that we had the X16 for a while, and that's how I control it was with the. the iPad, and it is pretty nice. If you The one thing about it I will say is that you just make sure that you run your own freaking Wi-Fi router
Yeah,
that is standalone. Don't use the one that is, because
built
man, that
into
was
it.
one of the most embarrassing times I ever set up to play at a bar. Uh, there's a ton of people there. We couldn't connect to the freaking mixer because there's too many phones there,
Yeah.
and it like totally overrode the Wi-Fi, the on board Wi-Fi or whatever it was.
Are you talking about the XR 18 by Behringer?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I used to
That's what
think it
it
was
is.
called the 16 too because it's 16 channels, but
I
for some
can't
reason
remember.
it's
Yeah, I knew
called,
it's something along those
yeah.
lines.
Yeah, no, I know exactly that. It is a nice little mixer, and it looks like the digital snake that I have, the SD16. They look exactly the same, pretty almost exactly the same. And
Yeah.
besides the router that's built into it, and that's just a digital snake that gets plugged in, right? But there's the mixer as well, and yeah, you have to have a router with it, like, or else you just aren't gonna connect to it. But the nice thing is, if you have a nice enough iPhone, you could run it from your phone. And I
Yeah,
mean, I would
totally.
rather use an iPad because it's really small, but
You can just
um,
see all thing is you can't really see all the channels that way, so you have to like
yeah,
scroll through everything,
yeah,
which
it's
would
a
be
little
annoying,
annoying.
but
But if you get
in a
uh,
pinch,
in a
for sure.
pinch, or my professor used to do this. He would log into it with his phone too, and then there'd be a couple of the sound guys, like learning in school, right, out in the audience also with the iPad, and you could tell when he was like adjusting things,
Sure,
and
yeah.
sometimes there'd be some like counterproductive things happening, but you know, but he
Yeah,
would mess with us that way because he would just log in with his phone and just be like, and then he'd be like looking over at us to see if we're
that's
noticing.
funny.
But yeah, technology is great. So anyways, I know we were wrapping up, but this has been fun. Yeah, thanks for being willing to do this. And yeah, for sure in the future, I like to have some space before I have a guest repeated. But
Sure.
I'm sure if you're down, it would be fun to have you again, and we can talk, about other specifics. And yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Steven.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good to chat with you, and yeah, we'll see you on the next time.
Rock on.
Cool.